It's 7 o'clock, but we'll give a little bit longer for people to dial in as we still don't have quorum, actually. So we'll go till the usual 7:05 here before we see if we can kick off the meeting tonight. All right, good evening, everyone. I believe actually we do now have all the trustees we are anticipating joining us tonight. And the room is starting to fill in. And as it is now 7:03 p.m., I say we call to order this meeting of the Nederland Board of Trustees on August 3rd, 2021. Miranda, if you would please call the roll.
Mayor Larson.
Here.
Trustee Taylor.
Here.
Trustee Danforth.
Here.
Trustee Corvallin.
Here.
And please note for the record that Trustee Apt, Trustee Coombs Ismail, and Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer will be absent.
All right, thank you, Miranda. We have the usual couple items on the consent agenda, the warrants and previous meetings minutes. Any trustees have questions, comments, or a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second. This is Trustee Taylor.
We have a motion and a second. Miranda, please call the vote on the consent agenda.
Mayor Larson.
Yes.
Trustee Danforth.
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
All right, consent agenda passes. Moving right along into public comment on non-agenda items. If anyone from the public would like to speak on any matter we're not addressing tonight, now would be your chance. You can have up to 3 minutes. Simply catch our attention in some way, be it by video, raising your hand, or beginning to speak, and the floor will be yours. Would anyone like to speak to us? Neither hearing nor seeing anything. We will continue on, and I guess always encourage anyone who does have something that comes up, please email us, and we can do our best to address things that way. We have 2 informational items this evening, and the first will be introduced by Miranda Fisher.
Yes, so Marcel Johns can't join us tonight, so I'd like to just go ahead and read into the record what I put in my aim. Tonight, we're presenting Jennifer Waltz with a plaque of appreciation. The Nederland Police Department had previously submitted 2 applications to obtain a report management system, an evidence module, and tablets for police vehicles. Unfortunately, neither one was accepted, so when a third opportunity to apply for the grant became available, Ned PD was connected with a local Nederland firefighter's wife, who is a professional grant writer. Sergeant Feinlevin contacted Jennifer Waltz in hopes of being able to ask her for some recommendations on how to approach the grant. To Sergeant Feinlevin's surprise, following the initial conversation, Mrs. Waltz offered to help with the entire grant process from start to finish. Sergeant Feinlevin and Mrs. Waltz worked together to turn the grant application from average to extraordinary. This took place under quick guidelines and with tremendous amount of work. With the help of Mrs. Waltz, Ned PD was awarded just over $75,000. While Ned PD had a professional services agreement with Mrs. Waltz, she refused to bill the town and continues to support Ned PD with navigating the grant management portion. While we would love to have done this in person, tonight we are virtually presenting Mrs. Waltz with a plaque of appreciation as a small token of our tremendous gratitude for her commitment, diligence, and compassion to helping PD in attaining the tools needed to improve our service to the community. We will connect with her to physically give that, but Mrs. Waltz is here, and I just really want to echo everything that Sergeant Feinlevin wrote here. We're so appreciative of her help, and it's just gone a long way. You know, Ned PD, it was Jen's first grant, and Mrs. Waltz was able to help her turn it in and have a quality product to submit, and we were awarded that, and we look forward to starting it next year. So I don't know, Jennifer, if you want to say anything?
No, I just want to say that I was happy to help. I actually really enjoyed working with Sergeant Feinlevin, and it was a fun project, and I'm thrilled with how it turned out, and thank you so much for your show of appreciation. You don't get that very often, so I really do appreciate the efforts to show me, to recognize me. Thank you very much.
I think it's us who are definitely thanking you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for stepping up and volunteering, even more of your time for the town of Nederland. It's what really makes this place great, is that we have people that are willing to do that, and really can't tell you how much we appreciate it. So thank you very, very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Any other trustees have anything they would like to add? Not. Again, Jennifer, thank you so much. I hope at some point get to meet you in person, and thank you in person, especially as I look out at the fire station. So I probably have seen you or your husband coming or going before. So thank you.
You bet.
We will then move on to our next informational item, which is an extension of some of the discussions we've been having regarding the updates to the building code. And I believe, Miranda, you are also introducing this and bringing us up to date, beginning with the Code of Hammurabi.
Yes, exactly. So this is really just an informational item to tell you that we are kicking off a community feedback month. As you'll see on the calendar I put in the packet, we'll actually come back to the Board of Trustees for your specific feedback on September 7th. We decided to structure it that way, so we're coming to you with all the information we've received from the community and the boards and commissions. So I just want to go over the way in which we're going to receive feedback. We're tackling this the same exact way we did Envision. While numbers were still lower, I would argue it was a success because we provided so many options for people to reach out. So first thing is in-person and virtual meetings. The calendar does outline the dates and times. We give a variety of days and times. We are asking, though, that people RSVP to those events so that if we don't have an RSVP, we can save the committee's time, but that's on the calendar. We're going to upload the PowerPoint that's in the packet on the website. The PowerPoint is not going to be narrated this time because there's so much information and people really can read it for themselves. We tried to pack it full of written language. So having a form there where people can fill out and give feedback. We'll also have a binder available at Town Hall where people can come look at that PowerPoint and either give verbal feedback or written feedback. We will touch base with all of the advisory boards and committees throughout the month of August. And then we're going to send out the PowerPoint directly to contractors and builders who have business licenses with town, which is about 30 of them. That includes people who both live and work here, as well as people who just contract work here, to see if they have any feedback. So in the packet, again, I did put the PowerPoint just for your initial review, but I'm not going to go over that tonight. The question before the board tonight is really, do you have questions about our public outreach strategy or any next steps and how we move forward with this process?
Looking at the calendar for August and September, it looks really full and a lot of good outreach opportunities with the various boards and virtual meetings. I think that's a great step forward. Trustees have questions. Trustee Taylor?
So I think this is longer than the Code of Hammurabi, but it has had an awful lot of really, really good information, and it helped me to get the changes that are going in that we're considering much better than I had before. And I think the schedule looks good. It's a very good presentation. Thank you very much, staff.
Trustee Danforth?
Yeah, I think this is great. There's a lot of outreach, and I think getting to the contractors in town is going to, or, you know, the people who are most familiar with the building codes will be using them. I think that's a really great idea. So I think this all looks good to me.
Okay. Trustee Corvallin?
No, it looks good. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, that looks great. Miranda, I assume there's going to be this is going to be advertised via social media and all the usual ways to try and get the word out.
Yeah, so we'll release everything on the website tomorrow. We're just finalizing the RSVP form, and then we'll push all of this information out, and hopefully we'll get quite a bit of feedback. This is really kind of the last step in the feedback process, because we'll need to start bringing that ordinance before the Board of Trustees in October in order to stick with our goal of implementation by January 1st. So we're really trying to hit it hard and do as much outreach as we can, and that, again, that specific feedback from contractors and builders, I think, will provide us valuable information.
Agreed. All right. Well, thank you very much. Look forward to hearing this again in a month or so.
Yeah.
Moving ahead, we have 3 action items tonight. First up is the Board of Trustees getting to take a look at the Envision 2030 vision statements that have been worked on over the last, actually about 6 months now, by the Envision 2030 committee. I just really want to thank, I see a number of the committee have joined us this evening. So to those of you who are here, thank you so much for all your participation, all the hard work, all the discussion, the debate, and the work that has gone into these, 8 or so vision statements, 10 vision statements. So I will just give this over again to Miranda to introduce it, since she has done an incredible job of coordinating this process and working through the meetings and bringing us to this point this evening.
Thank you. So I'll just get everyone up to speed. In the June 15th meeting, we had presented the Board of Trustees with some draft vision statements. There was a really great discussion, though, which ended in a desire to get more community input. So with the help of Trustee Danforth and Trustee Coombs-Ismail, we were able to create a survey which had people rank the statements from strongly approve to strongly disapprove and provide some comments. We left that open for about 3 weeks. We had 23 people participate. Then from that feedback received, we went back to the Envision subcommittees, had them discuss it, and make changes to their vision statements as needed. Trustee Coombs-Ismail then had a great idea of bringing those back to the full committee to review and vote on. So in your aim, you see that they took a vote and that all of the vision statements that are before you did pass by a majority vote. So tonight we are putting before you a final 2030 vision statement document. And the question before the board is, do you approve this as the final vision statements? And if so, then that is what town will adopt for the next decade, and we'll use as a framework to begin building other documents off of, such as the comprehensive plan. And I'll go ahead and get to that page here.
Yeah. First comments and questions from the trustees. Trustee Corvalin. Let you kick this one off. Tanya, there you go. You're off mute.
You know, I think it's all great. I've been wanting since the beginning, like some sort of like summary of the 2020 statements and what was accomplished and what wasn't. And I am still curious, you know, like some kind of breakdown like that. It's just like an easy way to see how these statements have affected change in the past 10 years from the first one to 2020, and to see the impact that these statements actually have. And so, I mean, I would still like to see something like that created, because I personally just feel like it's just a bunch of words, and which is great, but as far as it's this going to guide Nederland in the next 10 years, well, I guess we'll find out. I'm just curious how it guided Nederland in the past 10 years previous to this.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. Trustee Danforth.
Yeah, hi, sorry about that. So I think in general, the statements look really good. You know, and I was reading through the comments that were submitted, the public comments, and you know, reading Billy Giblin's comments, I have to agree that I think it's slightly out of place in the housing section to include a thriving downtown and the words lodging. When I think of housing for people, I don't think of people staying in hotels. That's not housing our population. That's more of an economic development topic. And same with like a thriving downtown, because we're more than our downtown. And if we're talking about housing, housing is within our entire city limits, which is more than just the business core and our downtown. So I think those are two kind of strange things to include in the housing. So I'm not sure what we need to do, or if it'd be possible to work on that one to remove or edit the things in there that seem to be out of place.
Thank you, Lindsay. We'll kind of, I think we can circle back and have a discussion. I want to get, since we have so few trustees, Trustee Taylor, your comments and thoughts before we kick back to what we can and can't do.
Sure. When I first looked it over, it seemed entirely reasonable to me. Do I agree with all the words? No. But each of these was put together by a committee of people who thought this through better than I could just reading it. And I trust those committees. And I do note that the one committee where the one topic here, which did not seem to receive arousing support, was housing. And I do think there are some parts of the housing that need to be, that we would be wise to rethink a bit. And I read Billy Giblin's entry, and I felt that he made some very good points. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to make those changes, but I think they're good points and worthy of discussion. Other than that, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Thank you, Julian, and thank you, Lindsay and Tanya. Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I was part of this committee, so I certainly was part of those discussions, and I think the record of the vote kind of shows the take on that, but I want to throw this open to public comment on this because it is an action item, and before we decide what we want to do with these, let's hear from those who have joined us this evening. So anyone who has joined us who'd like to speak on the Envision 2030 vision statements, now would be your opportunity. As usual, you have up to 3 minutes. Identify yourself, whether you're a town resident or not, and somehow catch my attention.
Hello, Chris.
Yeah, I hear a voice.
Hi, Chris.
Yes, who?
It's May Gerald. Hi,
Who's
everybody.
yours?
Yes, I was on the housing committee, and we really did a lot of work on our housing committee, and we went back and forth about how detailed to get into the things that we discussed in the SWOT analysis that I did. One of the most popular items was 21 people out of 60 like this real mountain town, small town feel, and liking the natural environment. A lot of people suggested that we build downtown sort of on the lines of some of the towns in Europe, in the Alps and so forth, where you have a real downtown area which is fairly built up, and then the surroundings remain fairly pristine. So I know that other committee members that I spoke with when we began this process, and I also thought that this was going to be a process where we asked the public to choose from various options. And I'm probably running out of time, but I want to very quickly say that, and others may speak to this as well, but I'm on the Arts Education Committee, and we had some fabulous ideas from the community about how to engage the public, how to reintegrate people into the community post-COVID. And I believe that this could be a unifying thing to get an art contest going at the high school and the grade school with exhibits at the library. And I love the idea of the poetry, maybe some songs. And because we have failed to engage a large segment of the population, and maybe the artistic vision of different people could be compared as we go into the comp plan. So, and what is the definition of housing? We have always had a rather hard time addressing the topic of transitional housing in this town, and also low income housing. And we talk about lodging. It is housing, it is temporary. And I know that the short-term rentals are, not considered lodging per se, but it is all very complex. And we were a very active committee, and I'd hate to think that only one or two things are going to be changed in the statement. I don't believe that the consensus of people is that we shouldn't talk about lodging or housing downtown. And I'm not quite sure where the objection comes, but I would think this would be the kind of thing we'd be discussing further down the road. And that's why I'm asking the board to approve these visions, because the committee voted on them in a yes or no vote as provisional, because I've had many good discussions about the artistic process. And very often when you're creating something, a tapestry, if you will, of what we want to see in the future, you don't really know how to summarize it until you have all in play. And
Thank you.
it's a more creative process to do it that way. And I would say that the Envision process has been rather stilted. We haven't had fun stuff for the public to engage in. We never did activate any of the postering or any of the things that bring in a whole nother segment of our community. So I
Thank
think
you.
everybody did a lot of work and wants to take a breather. So that's my recommendation, is that these
Thank you.
be adopted
Sorry.
as provisional vision statements.
Thank you,
Sorry
May.
if I want to stop it over there, Chris.
No, no, thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak?
Yes, this is Susan Wagner.
Yes, Susan, please.
Yes, so I live at 12300 Magnolia. My northern border is the southern border of the town in Big Springs. So, you know, I participated in community engagement toward the end because only one person was left on that subcommittee, and that happened to be May. And the chairperson was gone for a couple of months, and May was chairing another committee plus on 2 additional ones. So they asked for help, so I joined. So my suggestion, you know, I think as some of the trustees who have read the comments realize that this is an ongoing discussion, an ongoing debate, that there's some key issues that we as a community need to discuss, I think, 2030. And I think that's evident from the comments. And I don't think the appropriate place I don't think it's appropriate at this point to return it to the 2030 committee. I think they've done their work. I think that they did a great job. There's a huge amount of work that went into this with the goals and objectives as well. Some of the things in the community engagement objectives, like the arts and culture and education, are things that could be acted on now, really, in terms of engaging the community. So as I said in my comments, I would support the trustees adopting these statements with the comments that were submitted to the board tonight as a kind of a package that would be the basis for starting the whole comprehensive plan discussions. A lot was done here, but we're not going to achieve consensus in a small committee. And, you know, one of the things, I was looking over that SWOT again today, and it said that of the surveys that were put out, and Miranda publicized it a lot and had it on the web, but a total of 61 surveys were returned from the public. And then there were an additional number of answers from town employees, which I think brought it up to close to 100. But that's a very small number of people. The 2020 vision, I have to agree with Tanya. I heard her ask for that before, and I'm also interested in comparing 2020. That was one of my criticisms. I know Trustee Taylor said I think it was Trustee Taylor said that housing seemed to be the one with the most disagreement. But I think municipal government was up there with housing. And part of my disagreement with municipal government is precisely that some of the goals in the 2020 vision, I think, haven't been reached, and yet they weren't included as goals here. So I think the absence of a third-party facilitator, the Vision 2020 statements were facilitated by a third party, I was told at one of the meetings, and people wondered why weren't this one why wasn't this process? The comp plan will be facilitated by a third party. And I guess that's it. So that's why, for all those reasons, I don't think it'd be appropriate to change anything in here now. And I don't think it'd be appropriate to send it back to the committee, because they've done their work and it's done, but it's an unfinished document because it doesn't represent a true public view or consensus. Okay, my timer's going off. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Oh,
Mhm.
mine too. Thank you, Susan.
Oh, yep, sorry.
No, my timer was going off at the same time as yours, and I was fumbling with it.
Sorry, I'm trying to mute myself here. You can mute me.
Anyone else from the public like to speak for up to 3 minutes?
I do. Karen Blakemore. I live in Ned. And
Yes, Karen, then Lee.
I'm
Go ahead, Karen.
I'm in favor of adopting these statements with potentially Billy Giblin's suggestions of removing the lodging and thriving downtown part. I think, and using these as one of the guiding documents for the comprehensive plan, as was done with Envision 2020. I do feel like we've had a lot of community input, and that these statements are representative of the community's values and aspirations for the next 10 years. And I think as far as the details about different types of housing, temporary housing, low income, family housing, affordable housing, senior housing, I think all those details come into play in the comprehensive plan. So I think if we have some high level statements that can guide us, that's what we're looking for in Envision 2030. So my opinion is that we move forward with possible changes to the housing statement.
Thank you, Karen. Lee Stadell, I think I heard your voice chime in there as well.
Yeah, Lee Stadell, I live in Nederland, 3 Sundown Trail. I'm mostly, I mean, we voted as committees on all these statements, and we voted as a complete commission also. So, and all these passed. So I'm in favor of, the board adopting these. I do, and I've stated it before, have concerns. I'm more of a specifics guy, and Karen just mentioned how, that's up to other entities to fuss over. But I really do like specifics. And so I tried to at least steer the committees I was on towards that. But that's not what an Envision statement is for. So I'm in favor of adopting them the way they are.
Thank you, Lee. Anyone else from the public like to speak?
This is Billy Giblin. How you guys doing?
The floor is yours.
Thanks. So all in all, this has been a pretty cool process to be part of. A lot of great and perspectives coming together. And all in all, I think it has resulted in some vision statements and good guidance for.
You're breaking up really badly, Billy.
Everything. No.
Can't really hear you,
Can
Billy.
you guys hear me? Oh shoot.
No, you're really breaking up and coming and going.
Wasty noticed.
All right, I think we may have lost Billy there. So
Can you hear me now?
yeah, we heard you briefly.
Okay, now is it any clearer?
Yeah, it is a little bit better right now.
Okay, so all in all, I appreciate everyone's work and coming together and creating, I think, a good beginning. My main reason, for voting no was just on the housing, and I feel like semantics do matter. I think this is a guiding document. It's going to be part of a comprehensive plan, or at least built into, what we do for a comprehensive plan. And I just think the words driving downtown and then, as I wrote in my letter, and lodging just are a bit off the mark for being just, we don't need to call them out specifically in the housing vision. And in my opinion, possibly when they're in the comprehensive plan, which, people have to follow as part of special review use applications, they could, go with that semantics with the wording of the comprehensive plan and possibly, get approved for developments that may end up, being focused more on thriving downtown and lodging than on our overall housing goals. So I think, really talking about all parts of town is what this needs to do, and just all parts of town thriving, all different areas of town thriving. And, I mentioned mixed use, high density development. I think that's appropriate in parts of town, obviously not all parts of town, but downtown being one of those. But I feel like it could be also in other parts of town as well. And I would like to either see that sentence struck or, possibly replaced with the replacement I put on that particular housing vision. Otherwise, I feel like the other ones are good. And I also agree with Susan, that it needs to continue to be, open to the public and continuing to be good about engaging the public in ways where more and more people really see what we're putting together and, give us input. And I think that's everything. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you, Billy. I'm glad we got a good connection there for a while. I saw one person on video raising your hand. Can't quite tell. Yes, 182002. You're on mute, unfortunately. You need to unmute yourself.
So this is Bonnie Sundance, and I was part of several meetings putting in citizen comments. And the part that I'm wondering, we created extensive documents, and I'm wondering how those comments are going to be used, and the specific suggestions from these various committees. I may just be ignorant of part of the discussion or what has already been said, but it seems to me that this is a very partial representation of what came out of those discussions. And so I have a question about what happens with all those comments that were made and the suggestions, specific suggestions.
Thank you, Bonnie. That's a good question. I should have probably led with that. We should have discussed that earlier. We had discussed that these vision statements are a distillation of everything we got from the public, the discussions, et cetera, and all of that supporting material is then forming kind of an appendix that will be given to the Planning Commission and the committee that tackles the comp plan. So they won't be lost. They form that backup material for the next steps. Anyone else from the public would like to speak?
Well, Chris, this is May. I'd like to ask you a question. Since we're talking about downtown, I'm curious what your vision for downtown. I'm a little hung up on the word low impact recreation downtown. If I'm reading that right. I would like you to tell us, what is your vision for downtown?
Well, May, we had those discussions, and this isn't about any one person's views. You could ask me that elsewhere, but it has no relevance to the Envision 2030 process and at this point in the discussion. So thank you.
Disagree because,
well,
okay, you can shut me down, but this is not an admirable process that you're leading.
Sorry you feel that way. But I want to open the floor up for those who haven't already spoken. So if any members of the public, other members of the public would like to speak, we're still in that stage. I am not scanning here. I'm scanning. I'm not seeing or hearing anyone else. So, okay, we'll bring this back to the Board of Trustees. So Board of Trustees, having heard further public comment, I'm going to throw this open for further discussion or comment from the board regarding what they would like to see and moving forward. I'm actually not saying too much because I personally voted on all of these already as part of the Envision 2030 committee, and I did vote to approve the full set in the final vote. But I will hand this off to the trustees to see if they have further thoughts and comments, and we will just cycle through, beginning with Trustee Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. The long and the short of it is everything must have a stop. And so while this document and no document put together by a large number of people is going to be acceptable to everyone, I think it comes very close. And I like the idea that this is going to be submitted along with the comments that have already been provided as an appendix. That makes perfectly fine sense to me. I thought I might just mention this for the benefit of the people who are concerned about this not being detailed enough. Even in the discipline of engineering, there is a document that works like this. It's a document that describes what the thing is supposed to look like. It's called a functional specification. And it is entirely inappropriate for the functional specification to explain how the thing is going to be done. That's a different thing. That's a design specification. So this is not an unusual process. This is a process that's similar to the process that we use in engineering very successfully. And the comprehensive plan is going to be that design spec. And I look forward to participating as I can in that process.
Thank you, Julian. Tanya?
Oh, hi. Well, I wanted to, well, first of all, I am moved to approve this, but I would want to address some of the letters. And the first one would be the one about the lodging and about putting like the high density in all areas, residential areas, not just the downtown. And to me, I think to put that in an Envision statement without vetting it through zoning and residents would not be appropriate, because I mean that would imply that, oh, my neighbor with an acre lot would then be allowed to put 10 tiny houses or a condo complex or any which thing like that, which a lot of people moved up here for the space. And it also feels like it goes against the environmental sustainability, because to create high density in some of our more wooded and forested residential areas would not at all be protecting or conserving that area. So that's just my first opinion about, I think the high density personally should just stick to downtown business district and leave it at that. And then as far as like logic, I get that we could take it out. But then, you have to also think that residents, everyone that lives in this town, we do have family and friends that come and visit. People do have weddings and anniversaries and big parties. And to not include lodging as a feature to a community, it would basically, it negates that, would send people to Blackhawk or Boulder to have their family when they come and stay with them. Not everybody has a house that's big enough for that. And I think we do need to have sufficient lodging. Obviously, we don't want to have only lodging in our downtown area, but we have the one hotel, and that's good, but it sells out all the time. So, I mean, I see why it was put in there. I think, we all, when I had my baby, my family went and stayed down there, and if it wasn't there, I don't know, they'd be in Boulder, So we need to have some lodging for our residents in this town for that reason. And I'm sure there's other reasons. There's people who come for short little contract projects of work that might need a place to stay for a month or a couple weeks. So, and then I was also going to Susan Wagner's comment about the word preserve. And I'm initially was like, yeah, put it back. I don't see, but also I feel like conserve is good enough. As preserve means to maintain, and conserve means to protect. And as long as we take that seriously and actually do protect our ecology, as also I think the reason many of us live up here is not for high density housing, it is for our nature, and we need to protect that, conserve that. And so that's why I'm okay with passing it as is. I do feel like this is an ongoing conversation, and nothing that is written here is really like in stone. I mean, we are going to move forward, and if something comes up in the future where we have to amend these statements, I'm sure it can be done. So those were my thoughts about the letters that we received. Thanks.
Thank you, Tanya. And I want to point out, because relative to your point on sort of the need for lodging, I think that's why under economic development, it's called out, specifically needing hospitality and lodging there. That was part of that discussion.
Right. Well, so then if you guys wanted to scratch the lodging word in that sentence, I wouldn't care one way or another, but I would definitely care if we put high density lodging in all parts of residential neighborhoods, not just, I think that needs to stay right now in the central business districts. That's a whole nother conversation. I think very big conversation. And I don't think it should just be put in a statement that we're cool with that everywhere in town. So that's my thought.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. And Trustee Danforth.
Yeah. So I think that we want to be careful not to drag out these conversations too long and have meeting after meeting, because what's going to happen is we've lost the interest of the general public, of the people who were participating. We've worn out the members of these committees. And so what's going to happen now is there's going to be a few people making these changes to suit their needs. And it's no longer going to be what those committees had decided. So I want to be careful that that's not what happens here. I want to make sure that we're sticking to what these committees had decided. And so that being said, you know, I still don't like lodging being in the housing, because I don't want our town just to become a town of lodging, a town of Airbnbs, a town of just tourists. You know, we have to be mindful that people live here and need housing, actual housing here. But if that's what those committees who have reviewed these and voted on them, and the public voted on them, if this is what they decided works for them, then I think we should maybe go with that instead of editing it when very few members of these committees are present, and we don't have enough public input on the change that we're about to be making on this. I'm not sure if the optics of that are great. So I will begrudgingly say, let's pass them the way they are. And I think be careful then in the comprehensive plan that we make sure to identify that lodging is a part of our plan, but should not be the majority of our plan for housing.
Thank you, Lindsay. That's all the trustees tonight. So I will just throw this open to the floor of the trustees. Do we have any further comments, or if any trustee would like to make any motions regarding the Envision 2030 vision statements?
So this is Julian. I move that we approve the 2030 Envision statement as written, and be sure to include all comments as an appendix.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Trustee Taylor and a second from Trustee Danforth. Miranda, if you'd please call the vote.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
The Envision 2030 vision statements are approved. Again, to all of those served on the board, thank the Envision 2030 committee. Thank you very much. I hope as we move forward into the comp plan process next year, we'll have rested up and be ready to tackle that and dive back in and ensure some of these comments and thoughts are captured in that next document. Moving on this evening, our next item is Resolution 2021-16, Big Springs Improvement. And this is a follow-on to the discussion we had last week with our Public Works Director, Chris.
Yeah,
Take it away.
thanks. Thank you, Mayor and the board. So yeah, this is essentially a formality to a request that staff made at your previous meeting for a project to repave Big Springs Drive, and staff asked that you allocate, or rather appropriate, surplus funds from the general revenue for this effort. I did, there is an asphalt shortage right now because of refinery issues, and so could drive the cost of asphalt up. I am in constant contact with my asphalt person at Asphalt Paving Company, And hopefully, in the middle of this month, that will be resolved. So I'm still aiming for end of August, beginning of September. And likely knowing that there's a demand and a shortage of supply, that prices will go up. However, which may result in being able to do less or purchase. I will say though that in your simplified budget that I provided in the AIM, there is a built-in 15% contingency into those materials. So hopefully the prices aren't going up. But if they do, hopefully that will cover my costs sufficiently to do what I want to do. And so with that, just thanks for your support on this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Chris, this is Julian.
Yeah,
I have a
Julian, go
quick,
ahead.
I have a quick question about you're allowing for the cost of asphalt going up, but I'm also wondering, is the project planned in such a way that, let's say it goes up way more than we can imagine, and we may have to do slightly less than we were originally going to do. Is that something we can do practically here? Is there a way we can prosecute the project so that we're moving in an incremental enough fashion that if we do find that the prices have gone up too much, we can stop, leaving an excellent road right up to some stopping point? Or is this something where you put down a first layer all the way, then you put down a next layer all the way, and you got to do the whole thing?
Certainly can, and I haven't really considered, what is too much. That's essentially what you're asking. Is there a point where it's just like too much and I should wait? And that's a good question. I don't really know, and I am communicating with my guy or my person, and I hope that's not the case. But if it does get to a spot where I'm not satisfied with how much I should be able to do, and maybe my person will say maybe you should wait, and prices might come down, or maybe they won't. It's really based on oil prices and other commodities, so it's hard to say. But yeah, I'll just have to be a judgment call. So hopefully, you guys will trust my judgment when that happens.
So this is a case where you're going to make the determination to go, but when you make the determination to go, you'll have an agreed upon price for the asphalt.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Excellent. That's all I had to do. That's all I needed.
I can do a smaller project.
Thank you, Julian. Trustee Danforth, any questions?
No questions on this.
Okay. Trustee Corvallin?
No, I have no questions.
All right. This is a public item, public action item, so we will take public comment. If any members of the public would like to speak on this, now would be your opportunity. As usual, catch our attention in some way, or just begin speaking. Not seeing or hearing any, I will bring it back to the Board of Trustees. Does anyone have a motion regarding Resolution 2021-16?
This is Trustee Taylor. I move to approve Resolution 2021-16 supplemental budget increasing public works expense for streets improvements.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Trustee Taylor, second from Trustee Danforth. Miranda, please call the vote.
Trustee Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin,
Yes.
Mayor Larson.
Yes. Resolution is passed, supplemental budget is passed, and looking forward to seeing new asphalt on Big Springs. Thank you, Chris, for bringing this to us.
Great. Thank you again for all your support.
Moving on to our final action item, which is another resolution, which is being brought to us by our Downtown Development Authority. I believe we have two members of the authority here to introduce the Public Arts Program, Danielle and Kate. I will just hand the floor to you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mayor Larson. Members of the Board of Trustees, I'm thrilled to be here tonight with NDDA's new board member, Danielle Kraus, to present Resolution 2021-14 for funding of the first mural as part of the DDA's implementation of the Public Art Master Plan. You'll find more about the proposed resolution and budget, as well as a snapshot of the master plan in your packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kate, and welcome, Danielle. Welcome to one of our advisory boards.
Thank you.
I guess, I think I saw this, but what is the sort of the timeline intended for this? When are we expecting to try and see a mural?
So we are hoping that you're going to see a mural by the end of September.
Very quick
Everything
then.
is
All right.
all ready to go. Once this resolution is approved, we'll be able to pull all the next steps, and the mural design will be finalized next week at our NDDA board meeting. And then the hope is to get going. Danielle, do you have anything to add to that?
We have the installation set up on Business Connection facing our traffic circle. It's already set up. We have put some time into it for later this month if we need to touch up anything. If our creative people in town decide to tag it, it won't be a problem. And I'm looking forward to going over the preliminaries that we selected with the artist and learning how to continue connecting with our community artists and what the public would like to see in our town. This has been a good project, and I appreciate being a part of it.
Awesome. And so that answered my second question. The artist has been selected.
Yes, Greg Marquise was the artist we selected from 20 applications. And I will be going over with the NDDA meeting on how to present that to the rest of the public on how we chose his application and how to continue connecting with other artists for future projects.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Other trustees have questions for our DDA members or town staff? Trustee Danforth?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the money situation, and it made me think about the money that was pulled out, I think, to put into a savings account somewhere. So I wasn't sure, why we would need to give a loan if there was potentially money in a savings account that could be used. You could just clarify that for me, that'd be great.
All right. So I will try to answer your question, but if I'm not able to totally get it for you, I will get you something in writing in the morning. But from what I understand, the money that was taken and put into a savings account was money that for a future project. And so that we needed it to be in a high yield savings account since the project was curbed. And so that's what I understand was the thought process for why that happened. So we don't actually have access to that money at this time. And so it's kind of my understanding that this has become the process that the DDA uses to access their funding, is taking out the loan and then paying you guys back. That's the way that I've understood that it works with town, but I may be misspeaking, and I can check with our treasurer and get you more information on that.
It's Miranda, Kate. That's correct. So this is TIF funding, which is why, the public arts to date, Trustee Danforth, has always been through TIF funding, and it would be appropriate to continue to treat it the way it has thus far, especially from an accounting side. Really, when Rita goes to reconcile, we're going to want to keep it all ideally within TIF to make sure that the resolutions match up to the money loaned out and then the money received back in repayment.
Okay. Yeah, I think think I've just kind of lost track of where the DDA's money has gone. Because I mean, I understand the process of the, tip funding and borrowing and giving it back, but I remember those conversations about it being pulled out to be invested elsewhere. And so I wasn't sure if that had changed the workflow and how they get access to their funds if they're invested in these other areas. So I mean, I'm going to approve this thing here, but that's something in the future I think I want to see again, because I'm not sure where we left off on all that.
And Trustee Danforth, actually great timing. So Kate and I had discussed the DDA does need to come back to the Board of Trustees with the investment policies and procedures. And we're tentatively planned to do so at the next meeting on August 17th. And so work with Kate, I think it'll make sense to then work with Ron and Barb, who is their new chair, on adding that into the presentation.
Oh, awesome. Great.
Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you, guys. Tanya, do you have any questions about the art program?
No, I'm excited for the project, and I'm grateful for all the hard work everybody's been doing on the committee. So can't wait to see it in action.
All right. Julian, how about yourself?
Yeah, I was noticing that there is a coating that goes on to the mural once it's done, and I'm assuming that's to protect it from abrasion from wind and from the sun. And so that led me to be curious about how long do we imagine this mural will last? What do we see as the lifetime of this particular mural?
For this mural, we've projected that it will be up for at least 3 to 5 years, with the hopes of potentially selling it to put more funding back into the program. The coating will protect it from wind and sun, and it is also an anti-graffiti coating in case somebody decides to add to the artwork and we want to preserve it.
So now that's interesting. So the mural is going to be on a substrate and not on the wall so that we can remove it and sell it?
Yes, because the business connection is a historical building, the owner did not want us to paint directly onto the brick, which might be an option for future sites. So to preserve the brick, we installed a temporary structure of wood, and the two main wooden beams are anchored into the mortar. We did not go into the brick. And we pieced up the structure on the spot, but it will come down in whole except for the two main beams that support it. So we are able to rebuild a new mural surface once this one is either sold or put into storage.
Yeah, I saw a reference to a structure underneath, and I assumed, since I don't understand the nomenclature, that that was referring to something painted on. But clearly not. Well, excellent. That sounds like a very good idea. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Danielle, for answering the questions. This is a action item, so I will throw this open to the public for any comment about the NDDA Public Arts Program. Catch our attention if you'd like to weigh in on this. Not seeing or hearing anything, I'll bring it back to the board. Any final comments or questions or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Miranda?
Trustee Taylor?
Yes.
Trustee Danforth?
Yes.
Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Trustee Corbelin?
Yes.
Motion passes. Let the painting begin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Danielle. And thank you, the whole DDA, for the work you put in on this.
Thank you. We're very excited to get started.
We are too. All right. Moving right along, we're into discussion items this evening, and we have a discussion item regarding a draft ordinance on marijuana amending the marijuana zoning licensing section. Miranda, I believe, oh no, Jennifer Madsen, I believe you're going to introduce this one for us.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor, Trustees, Jennifer Madsen, Town Attorney. Ordinances 819 and 822 that are before you tonight as discussion items are the product of the Planning Commission Subcommittee, and that included Trustee Taylor. This Planning Committee Subcommittee was tasked with reviewing zoning limitations for certain marijuana businesses. Those are the marijuana product manufacturing, marijuana testing, and marijuana cultivation businesses, and also the corresponding medical marijuana type businesses. None of these business licensees sell to the public. So after review, the subcommittee recommended that in order to operate these types of marijuana licenses and businesses, that they should be approved through a special review use process. The subcommittee also recommended that these license types be spaced by a 500-foot distance requirement. These changes, amendments were included in the draft ordinances which are before you tonight and presented to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission agreed with the recommendation and recommended approval of the ordinances. Ordinance 819 that is before you incorporates the changes into the marijuana licensing section and into the use group table, which is in Chapter 16, the zoning code. Ordinance 822 incorporates the changes into the medical marijuana licensing section. I also want to note that on Ordinance 819, because there was an amendment to the use group table, there was also a recommendation to take out the forestry zone district. And the reason that that is being removed is there are no properties in the town that are in this forestry zone district. And essentially it's superfluous in the town. I will ask if Trustee Taylor, because he was on the committee, if he has any additions to add to my comments.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I saw myself largely as the chair of this committee, and I tried to let the various other representatives of the businesses and the representatives of the Planning Commission do most of the work. But I do agree with this. I think it's a reasonable solution. And I also discovered that by being the liaison to the Planning Commission, I'm actually a member of the Planning Commission. I'm glad I found that out, because otherwise I would have talked to other people on the Planning Commission without recognizing the limitations. So I learned a lot from this, as well as I very much enjoyed seeing these various competent people pulling together and making this recommendation. I believe it is a good recommendation, and I would recommend approving it.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Jennifer. I just have a couple quick questions here to kick us off. First, regarding the 500-foot restriction, that applies only to the testing, cultivation, and production. That doesn't affect any of the retail or medical stores or commercial stores. Is that right?
That is not the intention. No, it does not.
Okay. So you could still basically okay. All right. The other question I had was looking at the use tables. I think most of the changes in there made sense, but I did notice that there was also the change for retail marijuana stores in neighborhood commercial going from special review to use by right.
Jennifer would understand this probably better than I. I'm old and I don't have a very good memory, but there was an inconsistency in the code where medical marijuana, stop me before I say something stupid, Jennifer, medical marijuana was treated differently than commercial marijuana, which did not seem to make sense. And so I believe we did that in order to bring the two into alignment.
I also wanted to clarify that one of the things that we're doing here is making sure that the licensing section and the zoning code are consistent. So we want to have consistencies between Chapter 6 of the municipal code, which is the marijuana licensing section, and then Chapter 16, which is the use group table. So in Chapter 6 for retail marijuana stores, they are allowed in neighborhood commercial, general commercial, and central business district. And so that's another reason why there was a change for the retail marijuana store from R to Y in neighborhood commercial, is to make it consistent with what is in Chapter 6.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you. Tanya, do you have any questions regarding these ordinances?
Yeah, I guess I'm just back to your question about the use by right. I'm just so confused because so many other things aren't used by right for neighborhood commercial. They all need special review, like having a coffee shop or a short-term rental or gallery. So why exactly can a person just have a use by right in neighborhood commercial to have a retail marijuana store, but you can't have that for an art gallery?
That Trustee Corbin, that's a great question. And I don't know that it was something really that was specifically considered by this subcommittee. What the subcommittee was considering is zoning limitations related to the cultivation, product manufacturing, and testing facilities. And so the subcommittee wasn't really tasked with considering zoning for the retail shops.
No, it just seems possibly kind of, I don't know. I mean, we are still limited to the 4 retail stores in the town of Nederland.
Yes.
Yes.
So somebody would have to go out of business for somebody else to open up shop in somebody's neighborhood.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
I just
Tanya,
could see it being a little contentious to be so allowing. I'm just so confused because I know that you have to have a special review to open a coffee shop or a gallery or anything. It seems like it would be pretty intrusive on a neighborhood. So
I guess a question I would have to clarify that is, you said to Jennifer that this was to bring it in line with the Chapter 6 licensing chapter. Was there any discussion about bringing Chapter 6 into compliance with the table? Like go the other way and saying, okay, yeah, it's a special review, remains a special review use for neighborhood commercial instead of a use by right, and fixing this Chapter 6 question?
No, that wasn't discussed. And just so you all know, and it's listed this way on the agenda, but this is a discussion item tonight.
Right.
And it will have to come back before you for action. So if there's a desire, to make this change, that is something that could be done.
Absolutely. And Tanya, I'd have to take the blame for our not looking at any non-marijuana issues. I was really trying to keep the meetings down to 1 hour, and I was trying to keep us focused. And so we didn't review, we didn't do a lot of work reviewing and comparing our decisions to prior decisions related to other businesses. And so, yeah, I'm wide open to a suggestion that the retail, it's both be special review use. I'm thinking that perhaps we may want to look at all of the various businesses for which we require a special review use at some time later on. That sounds like an interesting discussion to have, but for right now, we weren't thinking along those lines. We were just very much focused on marijuana manufacturing. And when we saw this discrepancy related to retail, we made a decision about it.
Trustee Taylor, this is Miranda, though. I do want to offer a quick clarification. So a few things. Under the license limitation, there's obviously a time for Board of Trustees to review how they would fill that vacant license, but the Board of Trustees will always convene as the marijuana licensing authority, which serves in similar function to an SRU, and I know other people have made that comment. And so while I do agree, Trustee Corwin, this is something to explore sooner, a license would never just be issued administratively to a retailer. It would always come before the Board of Trustees for evaluating criteria for approval.
But if it's a use by right, there's not a whole lot we can say negative about it because it's their right use by right. You know, my opinion doesn't matter.
You would still have the evaluating criteria, but yes, it does hold a different criteria that you would review versus an SRU. You are absolutely right.
No, I personally, I mean, I don't feel like it would be in anybody's business interest to set up a retail marijuana on 3rd Street somewhere or whatever, but I don't know. I just feel like it might be better to make it a special review use like everything else, and not just be used by right. That's just my opinion. I'm not against that. I just, you know, retail marijuana, I just kind of think when it's in a neighborhood with kids and whatnot,
I think that's
it might be beneficial to have a special review. Like if it's a corner lot by the highway or something, it makes more sense. But if, you know, but I also don't think it would probably come up because it's not financially, you know, beneficial probably for that person. But still, I just feel like having a use by right's a little bit generous, very generous.
I appreciate that, Tanya.
Trustee Danforth, any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with wanting to look at the use by right stuff, and you know, dig deeper a little bit into that. I think Tanya brought up a lot of good points. So, and I'm like right now kind of deep into it on the code online. So sorry if I seem a little distracted. I was just reading up on everything again. But yeah, so since this is something that's going to come back to us, you know, over the next few days or week, we can submit additional questions or things we'd like to have reviewed, correct?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One thing I just want to point out to more fully answer the question about the use by right of the retail marijuana store in neighborhood commercial. Just so that you are all aware, the Medical Marijuana Center, which is a medical marijuana corresponding license, is a use by right in neighborhood commercial. So my recommendation would at least to make those consistent with one another. If you're going to make one a special review use, you should make the other a special review use or use by right alternatively.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
No, this is planning commissioner. I was on that subcommittee and I remember why we chose that. So maybe I can't speak.
All right,
but
I was
there's a
actually
reason.
about to go. So, Billy, your first public comment.
Sorry, and
floor.
I'm just chopping because I'm like, there was a reason. So correct me if I'm wrong, Julian and Jennifer, and Miranda, but the reason we did it was to eliminate or try to eliminate redundancy because that would automatically be coming in front of the board of trustees anyways. So we weren't wanting to slap a double review on it, basically. Am I confusing that with something else? Or I think that we did that intentionally because it already, because of the moratorium of 4, it already was a built-in review.
Yeah, Billy, you're younger than I am, and so you probably remember all of this better than I do. But yeah, that was a discussion that came up, and it was also brought up later. So this notion of the licensing board does a lot of what a special review use does. That was a common theme throughout all of this. But also remember, we were very much trying to focus on manufacturing and extraction and that sort of thing. And we were really trying not to put a lot of effort into retail because that wasn't our charter. And so that's why I recall when I saw this, that I think it was medical marijuana was use by right and commercial was special review use. I remember when I looked at that, I was thinking, well, the older one, the one that was there earlier, that was use by right. And so it seemed reasonable to me if we were going to just be fixing an inconsistency, let's go ahead with the use by right for both of them. And Jennifer remembers all of this better than I do, and she's looked over all the words in ways that I have not. But that's how I recall this. So, yeah. But if we have a good reason to make the retail special review use, then I'm open to that argument. I'd like to kind of hear the reasoning in a more formal way. Tanya's certainly expressed her concerns clearly. But if we decide to make that special review use, that's fine. Because bear in mind that for the production, we are requiring special review use, even though they have license, even though they have to get a license as well. So we decided both of those were important because licensing and special review use serve different purposes. But I felt okay with retail marijuana just being used by right. But again, I'm open to persuasion on that.
I think it was related to the moratorium of the fact that there was already a limit on it.
Right. We were kind of seeing that the BOT had already dealt with retail essentially, and we were just dealing with the manufacturing side. That was our charter, and we tried to stay very focused on that.
Thank you, Billy. Thanks for filling in those details. Other members of the public want to weigh in on this discussion item?
Yes. Can you hear me? This is Jim Reese. I was also on that subcommittee as a planning commission member.
Welcome, Jim.
Yes. Thank you. I also wanted to reinforce what Billy Giblin said, who was on that committee. That was exactly how we heard it. We talked about that, and Julian assured us that there was a very thorough process, that the BOT automatically reviewed all of that stuff, and it would be redundant because it's already under that umbrella of the board's review and purview of the marijuana businesses to approve a license, and that it would just be one extra step to get the planning commission involved on that. And since it was already a moratorium of 4 businesses, that we were just kind of out of that process, and it was under your guys' purview, and that would then make it consistent. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? David, I saw your video pop on.
That's all I have.
Anyone?
David Michael here. Can you hear me? I'm having some
David, I see your lips moving, but we're not hearing anything.
I figured as much. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
I can hear him. I hear him.
Oh.
I might try and call
it's
it.
just me. Weird.
I can't hear anything.
It's not just you. I can't hear it
okay.
either. This is WebEx.
Oh, weird. I can hear him.
I'm having different internet.
Oh, we can hear you now. I can hear you now. Apparently others have.
I can't hear.
Did the WebEx fairy come?
I'm going to call in.
Okay, we'll hold on, and we'll come back to you here in a minute. See if anyone else from the public would like to speak while we're waiting for you to call in. That was one of the weirder things, that some of us could hear them and some of us could not.
I'm gonna fucking go to bed. You idiot.
So I will bring this back. I'll just have a little comment because I can see David still dialing his phone there. In terms of, you're just talking to the board here. Oh, wait, we have a call-in user.
Give me 1 second to mute my.
Yep.
Go. Hi, this is David Michael. Can you hear me? I apologize for my internet connection.
We can hear you now.
We can hear you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate your patience. I am general counsel with Agati. I also did serve on the Netherlands Marijuana Advisory Committee and have been involved in this process as it's gone through the Planning Commission. So first of all, we have argued and recommend that since the Board of Trustees will have the opportunity to engage in all of the options to present conditions or to look at licensing that for marijuana production only, not for cultivation, but only for production. Cultivation can be present a number of odors and have a number of issues that I do think that a special review is appropriate, whereas production, it is more akin to a commercial kitchen, such as a restaurant, and at least in the CBD zone or general commercial or industrial, where those will be allowed, we do think it's appropriate that it be a use by right. That will go through the Board of Trustees and will be subject to conditions that the Board of Trustees can put in place to make sure that the public is protected. The two processes running in conjunction are duplicative. They are not, they're inefficient in terms of the staff. We do not have any concern whatsoever of paying a fee twice. That's not the limiting factor. It's the time, the effort, and going through multiple tracks to get the same approval and to have the same review. If the Board of Trustees wanted the Planning Commission to advise on a particular issue, I think it's appropriate to schedule it as such. But to have it be a restricted use as well as go through the other channels through the Board of Trustees as the Marijuana Advisory Board, we do not think that this is something that is advisable or is good government, as I think it creates waste and multiple different tracks for the same review. Secondarily, there has been a new item that has arisen. Oh, and by the way, that would apply to both the medical and the recreational. On the issue of the 500 feet between production licenses and cultivations, we don't have an issue with the distance. However, we do have some concern about the limitation imposed that it be in the same structure with the same ownership. And the same structure makes perfect sense to us. However, sometimes in running your business, if you have a retail wing or operation and you have a production operation, you might choose to use different entities for both, even though it's the same ownership, or if you're in a joint venture, it might be similar ownership where it's 50-50 or 51%. And I would recommend that the board consider that if it wants to have that 500-foot separation in place between these uses, which isn't very common, by the way. It is for retail, but not for these uses since they're not something that's really advertised to the public. That if they do that, you allow for there to be separate ownership within the same structure, or separate LLCs or separate companies that hold it, so that you give the license holders options to use different limited liability entities for that purpose. I'd also say that in the city of Denver and in the state,
tie up here, David, your 3 minutes is up. If you can quickly tie up.
I will tie it up. In the state, they have recently created a license specifically to allow, for social equity purposes, the ability to even allow one license to be next to the other, so that you could give a chance to a social equity applicant to be in that same structure and have a starter unit or something that would get them going in a smaller part of a larger marijuana facility. That is very important to us, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I've been an attorney in space since 2009. I serve on the Marijuana Advisory, Marijuana Industry Group, and have been involved in this process for over a decade.
Thank you, David. Before we come back for any other questions amongst the board or discussion, I'm going to leave this open for any other public comment because we're in that section. Anyone would like to chime in? Not seeing or hearing any. We'll bring this back to the board for discussion. And actually, I had a couple questions as we were listening to things. Questions of mine that came up. I guess I will ask these of Julian. because you served on our board and you had hopefully had these discussions, I'm sure. When it says product manufacturing, what kind of products are there? Is there a restriction to that or limitations on what a product is? I have to admit, I have very little knowledge of marijuana products. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at, and the meat of my question is, I assume this would be the production of gummies and edibles and things like that. But my bigger question is, does that include such things as hash oil extraction, which we know has blown up buildings here in town in the past?
That's an interesting question, and I think Jennifer would be able to augment what I'm going to answer. The argument from industry is that extraction is more like a jeweler or a public kitchen or a commercial kitchen than it is like a manufacturing facility. I'm not 100% positive that I'm going with that. You could imagine, so there are pressurized flammable gases in extraction. And if you don't know what you're doing, those things can blow up. But of course, if you're a jeweler, you still have flammable gases. And we wouldn't have a problem with a jeweler being in the CBD. So it is an interesting question. And our conclusion near the end was, after industry had specifically brought this up and made some recommendations, our conclusion after we kind of met to discuss this was that the SRU really does serve a very different purpose than licensing. And we expect there to be further innovation in this industry, and we continue to feel reasonably comfortable that extraction remained as a special review use. So production includes extraction and infusion.
Okay, thank you. And then my final question, just regarding the discussions held by the Planning Commission and by the Marijuana Subcommittee. You guys obviously, you've made the recommendation that we allow this as a special review use. Was there any discussion at all about whether or not we wanted it, like, about not allowing manufacturing and particularly the extraction and infusion part in any districts?
We did not discuss that. There is a pretty serious regimen, as you know, for inspection of these facilities. And there are good procedures in place for dealing with possible violations of safety. So we felt comfortable as long as we could review each of these through a special review use and make sure that we were fully understanding what that particular operation was going to entail, that it could be allowed in any of these locations.
Okay, thank you.
As with all of this, we're open to discussion by the board.
Oh, of course, that's the joy of this. This is a discussion item tonight. It's a chance for us to try to catch up with where you guys already are in your knowledge base. So, Trustee Danforth, did you have any other questions or thoughts that have come up hearing public comment or other discussion?
Not at this time.
Okay, Tanya, how about you?
No, I would just move to limit neighborhood commercial from the use by right, but I already told you that. So that, otherwise, I mean, it looks great. Thanks.
Okay. So I guess my next question is sort of what are the next steps and what are the timelines of those? And this might be for Jennifer and Miranda.
Well, if the Board of Trustees approves or by a nod of 4 recommends bringing this ordinance back, we can bring it back on a future agenda. I'm not sure what date that would be, Miranda, but we could bring it back as an action item.
Okay. I know that we've heard from Tanya that she's interested in in the use table correction or use table correction, as I'll call it, going sort of the other direction and making it a use by special review within neighborhood commercial for both retail and medical. And chime in here, Tanya, if I'm misquoting you, but to get that to get the two the same. So would you need a not a 4 to bring that back, or is that something we could bring back and have a discussion as an action item with the other members of the Board of Trustees who aren't here?
Yes, we could, if there's agreement to make that amendment to the use table for the retail establishments, we could make that change and bring it back as an action item.
Okay, I guess I was concerned about if we make the changes in the Chapter 16 use table in the ordinances as proposed, is there then going to have to be an additional ordinance written to fix Chapter 6 licensing?
No.
Or, okay.
I
Okay,
could
that's
make
what I
that
wanted to make sure.
amendment because it's all, it's in the same section.
Okay.
It's already in the ordinance.
Okay, I wanted to just make sure we weren't complicating things by if we tried to do that at the next meeting and at the discussion.
It would be a very simple change.
Okay, very good. Other trustees chime in. I would say I'm gonna call not a 4. I'm going to, ask that this comes forward at a future agenda as an agenda item and an action item at a future meeting, and we'll have that discussion regarding the Chapter 16 use table agreement at that point, and any other items that other trustees would like to also bring up either now or then. So, Tanya, did that capture yours?
Yeah, and I mean, I just feel like it could be problematic in the future. I'm not overly concerned about it, but if I lived in neighborhood commercial, I might be more concerned. So that's all.
I'll just say that I understand Tanya's argument here, and certainly we could make this more formal, Jennifer, by having Tanya propose an amendment when we approve this. But I don't have any concerns about making the change that Tanya has suggested, Jennifer. If for example, Lindsay doesn't have an objection and Chris doesn't have an objection, then I'm feeling entirely comfortable with that amendment.
Lindsay?
That would be okay if that's what everybody desires to do. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
Lindsay,
and hopefully there'll be more members present.
Yeah.
At that time. I mean, like I said, I'm not over. I would approve it right now if we, but that's the only thing on my mind is the possibility of something like that in the future. I don't know.
Lindsay?
So I guess the question is, do we approve this now and then come back and fix the other things? Is that?
Well, we're not approving anything tonight. The only question is, do we bring it back to the Board of Trustees in an action item, having changed the use groups in Chapter 16 for both retail marijuana stores and medical marijuana centers as special review use in neighborhood commercial?
Yep, I think that sounds good to me.
Okay, I also agree with that. So I think that's a not a 4 to bring that back with that one change, and then we can have discussion with the rest of the Board of Trustees and the public again regarding some of the other items that were brought up that are a little bit more in depth.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else from us, Jennifer or Miranda, on that? Or you feel comfortable with where we are?
No, I can make the change and we'll bring it back for action item for a future date.
All right. Thank you all very much. And yeah, for those who are interested in this from the public, we will, pay attention to the agenda, and hopefully we'll have this on as an action item within the next month and a half. Final discussion item today is the American Rescue Plan Utility Bill Assistance. This is something we'd ask the town staff to look into and come back to us on after the discussion at our previous meeting. So Miranda, please.
Yes, exactly all that. So what we have before you is the utility bill assistance information. I want to kind of draw attention to the last time we brought this forward. I think the way in which the AIM was written offered a little bit of confusion in that $30,000 definitely does not pay off a quarter of utility bills. It would really cover the accounts in arrears. So bringing a series of information for you to consider. So let's just start first with the account in the arrears. If the BOT was looking to pay off those accounts, we're looking at just shy of $16,000. We have 22 accounts that are in arrears for a total balance of $13,926.96. We do think it's important, though, to note that many of those have the minimum aging of those is 88 days, with some well over a year. And so there were some accounts that were in arrears prior to COVID. So we can't say that those accounts are kind of a COVID specific incident. So something for the board to consider. We also have 3 business accounts that are in arrears of over 60 days for a total of $1,939.38. While there is benefit in the Board of Trustees considering paying off these bills, we do want to just draw attention that there are a series of programs that can assist with bill assistance. Boulder County Area Agency on Aging, the Emergency Family Assistance Association, and Canyon Cares are all possibilities for those users. As well as there's the utility reduction rate program that individuals can enroll in, and we included the application. Currently, we actually only have 2 people on that program, and so it is an option for people. Town staff, though, we're recommending the Board of Trustees actually consider applying a credit to all accounts. So not every property has sewer services, so the way in which we pulled this information was to pull the water accounts. There are, however, 4 accounts that are sewer only. So if, for example, the Board of Trustees gave a $50 credit to every user, we'd be looking at $45,650. That number could increase or decrease. The feeling, though, is that that's an equitable program. We don't want to penalize people who pay their bills on time. Of course, the Board of Trustees could consider paying both, doing a credit and paying in arrears, but we do think there's benefit in providing that credit and assisting every property owner here in our community who may or may not have had financial challenges during COVID. Again, just a reminder that we have $385,000 to use between now and 2026, but this was a desire of the Board of Trustees, which is why we're bringing this one piece back now. And so the question before the board is, would you like to use American Rescue funds for utility bill assistance? And if so, how would you want to distribute those funds?
And what is this, the second part on here, the rate reduction program? Just
So that's,
because it's
yeah, I
attached.
may turn that over to Chris. That's a program that town currently offers to residents. Chris, I don't know if you can summarize it maybe a little better than I can if you're there.
It's self-explanatory. I mean, it's a program that we offer, and like you said, there's not that many people on it, but for people that have a hardship and are able to qualify for the program, then they can get a reduction in
Yeah.
rates.
But we just don't have that many people actually taking advantage of that.
Correct. I mean, this information is on our website, and I'm recently meeting with Christy Vendetti from EFA, continuing to promote this. I do know that Kat McDonald does share this with people, especially accounts in arrears. Of course, it's taking the initiative to complete the application, but it is an option. And so it's not saying that the account in arrears are not important to consider. It's just that there are a series of programs out there that I know EFA and AAA came forward when we last talked about this because they felt like perhaps they could assist before the Board of Trustees use the funds to wipe out those accounts, that there might be other ways in which we could work with those users for the time being and seeing if we can help them through those other avenues.
All right. Thank you. Other questions from the board? Lindsay, do you have any questions or comments about the 2 proposed ideas here?
I like the idea of first reaching out to these accounts and seeing if we can get them taken care of with the other programs that are available. So hopefully that kind of settles that out. So I think if that's possible, and then we move forward with the credits to everyone, I think that's a good idea.
Tanya?
I like the idea of giving every user a credit. I do like that. And then I would also say that we should send everybody who's delinquent a a little fact piece of paper with all those contact information of how they can get help, and also the program that Chris was just talking about, and let them know how they can sign up. And because it's possible that many people don't realize that there's resources for help. So, but I do like the idea personally of just going ahead and giving everybody a credit. So that's my thoughts.
Okay. Julian?
Well, I'm the Grinch here. Giving everyone the $50. I'm not 100% on board with that. Helping the people who are currently having trouble paying, I think that's very important. And I have a question for Miranda. If all of the people who are currently in arrears were to apply for this program you're describing, would that be would that be as effective as helping them catch up with just a cash outlay?
I think it's going to really be dependent on whether or not they qualify. So as you see here, there's a series of eligibility requirements. You know, first, like the applicant must be 62 years or older or disabled and a full-time resident. I don't know the demographics of the individuals in arrears, so I can't say that they would qualify, you know, but they may qualify for EFA or King and CARES. Now, those are one-time assistance programs, but so they wouldn't be able to wipe out their full amount, but may be able to provide some assistance to them. But I don't think any of these programs could potentially wipe out a full account in arrears.
I like the idea of saying those people who were behind a year ago aren't qualified because we know that's not a COVID related problem. But for the people who went into arrears during the COVID crisis, I feel very comfortable if our current programs cannot help them, helping them catch up with this approach, where we simply say, one time we're helping you catch up, and that's how we're helping you to recover from COVID. So I'm feeling good about. I'm certainly feeling good about providing them with enough information that if they qualify, they can use our other programs. But if they don't qualify for those other programs and they went into arrears during the COVID crisis, I'm feeling very comfortable with the idea of using this money to help bail them out from that crisis. The reason I'm not sure about the $50 is that for the people who aren't in arrears, I think the vast majority of them probably don't need the $50. I mean, I'm not sure I'm seeing where the $50 has a demonstrated benefit. I mean, I would appreciate getting the $50, but I would also kind of feel like that was a conflict of interest if I'm voting for it. I know it's not technically a conflict of interest, but I feel bad about it. So the only thing I'm having a little trouble with is the general $50 to everyone. I'm not positive I see what actual value that provides. So that's my only concern. For everything else, I'm feeling really good about.
I can just offer two from town staff side. So the feeling was, you know, of course, we don't know anyone's economic situation. And so are there potentially people in our community who sacrifice something in order to keep their water bills current? And so it kind of brings in that equity piece of, you know, supporting everyone. We know that lots of people did struggle at the time, and because we don't have the data on that, this seemed like a fair way to return these funds back to our community who, you know, again, may have foregone another bill over their water bill. So if that was, and since there are kind of limited uses here of the funds, that might be an appropriate way just to support our full community.
So let me just say that I understand what you're saying on that, and you're starting to persuade me, but I would like to prioritize the funds for helping those who have fallen into arrears recover. But
sure.
Okay, yeah. I can see that. I can see what you're saying.
What about having like something that a person could check if they don't want to receive that fund, and in lieu, that money could go towards one of our, I mean, I'm saying food pantries first thing in my mind, but there's other human resources that maybe they could somebody who, you know, obviously there are lots of people in this town who $50 is nothing. So maybe they could check something that says, I do not want to receive this money. And maybe even say another box, I would like this money to be donated to food pantry or whatever. I'm just throwing out ideas because it could feel like on the next bill, you know, like that option.
Miranda, would that be consistent with the requirements for the money? I mean, would it be consistent to allow a citizen to redirect the money to the food pantry or a specific set of designated charities?
I would want to double check the rules. And actually,
Yeah.
Trustee Corvalin, you bring up an interesting point. So in meeting with Christy Vendetti from EFA, one option would be to take this whole amount of $45,650 and provide it to EFA to distribute. And so that would probably be an easier way to do that, where people would contact her and EFA to have the funds. They would help to provide the $50 on behalf of the user. And that's kind of a lot on town staff to sort out if it was a check that you don't want it. And then the remaining funds could be dedicated to, you know, said organization. That would be a preferred way to handle that. And in essence, it would be a grant.
Money could be used for rent also, or other things besides utilities.
You could open that up. So what it would look like is it's a grant from Nederland. And so Nederland would set the parameters on how that grant were to be used, but it uses that third party to distribute. And we all know town staff, it would be hard for us to do. So that would be a great.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
And maybe even give them more money at that point.
If it's opt-in, there would be,
you know, like
possibility of more
people
money
could use it
available.
for rent assistance as well,
I
or
think-
other things. It would just be on their shoulders a little bit to take the effort to contact EFA. But I mean, I don't think that's that hard to do. So I kind of like that idea too, now that you mentioned that.
Well, so I wonder too, what if we, you know, wait 30 days and give 30 days time to reach out to these people who are in arrears, see if we can get them to pay through those other programs. And then if that doesn't clear off all of them, then we can use some of the funds to finish, you know, clearing off these accounts that are in arrears. And then whatever's left over, we can give that to a third party effort to distribute them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, was a hybrid approach where we look and see maybe it's the people who fell into arrears in the last year. You pay that off. Maybe, I don't know, I'm making up numbers because I don't know, as maybe that's 10,000 of that amount. And then with that remaining $35,000, that then is the seed grant to EFA that can then do the outreach. And then that's the same amount as giving $50 to everyone, which I think, very similar to what Julian said, I think that dilutes it so much. Kind of like the payments we got from the federal government, where a lot of it went to people who weren't that impacted by COVID. You know, it went to people who could work from home rather than just the people who are working in the restaurants or the service industry who really took the brunt of it. So this is a way we could maximize the impact to those who really need it, while staying within sort of the similar budget level. Is that?
So I think one thing too, as town staff, that would may be helpful too is if the board is in agreement with Trustee Taylor, is to identify of those accounts which ones were potentially in arrears before COVID began, so that we can also assess that data.
This is Chris here. I'm pretty sure that our billing person, Kat McDonald, is in communication with these folks and makes them aware of all the programs that are available. I don't think it's, you know, a hidden secret. They should know that these programs are available.
I do agree. And speaking with Kat, that she, you know, and then seeing some of the letters that she sends out in regards to arrears, she does encourage them. And like Chris said, the information is out there. And so we can definitely double check, or do, like Tanya said, another letter saying, you know, here are all your options. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but in talking with Kat, you know, a lot of these accounts, while some have a minimum age of 88, most are significantly in arrears.
Yes, there are a few that have been in arrears for a long time, and are typically in arrears. I don't know what their situations are though. But yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, I'm feeling very comfortable with that plan. Help the people who are in arrears and who, because of the requirements of this grant, this pool of money, make sure that they went into arrears during COVID. And then once that's handled, let EFA take care of people who did not go into arrears but can apply and say, I had trouble because I didn't go into arrears. I think that's an excellent approach.
So did I hear you correctly then that this 40,000, the 45,000 is the pool in which you'd want to then, minus whatever we pay out from the arrears, is the pool you'd want to use, or of course I'll keep bringing this back for more discussion.
This is
that what you're thinking though?
It would be interesting to have some more numbers regarding if we can know, if we can find a way of determining roughly how many people we think would be eligible for the other request to EFA, so we have a kind of a rough idea of what to grant to EFA. That would be nice. If we can't do that, then perhaps it's an issue of we make a partial grant to EFA and see what the response is. And if the response is high, we have lots of citizens in Netherlands who really could use help because they didn't go into arrears. Then we do another grant. That's one possibility, but this is off the top of my head right now, Miranda.
Yeah, I mean, this is a discussion item tonight, so I think certainly we'd want to reach out to EFA to see if they're interested in participating in this way and taking on the ownership of this program. But and I think then we'd want to have a discussion probably, beginning with EFA's input as to what are the best criteria for that grant to residents. Tanya, you mentioned rent assistance. Is it rent assistance? Is it electrical bills? Is it straight cash disbursement to help with other bills and food? What is the sort of the best criteria or the best uses of that money? And I think EFA's in the position to really know where that impact can be the greatest. And so I would say we'd want to bring this back to the board at a future meeting with some of that input. And then we could start looking at, how many people, what the cost of the those who fell in arrears within the last year, what that is that 5,000 of that 13,000, or is it 10,000, or is it what it is, and what amount it makes sense to give to EFA as a seed to try and kick off that grant to the community.
Okay, agreed. Yeah. And I did have that initial conversation with EFA, so I am in support, Mayor Larson, and bringing Christy forward to kind of explain how, I guess they're doing a similar program for Boulder County with their ARP funds. So I'd love to have her describe to the board how that would work.
That would be great.
That sounds wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I do want to throw this open because it's not even 9 o'clock yet, guys. And it is a discussion item. We do have some members of the public still here with us who have been listening in on our discussion regarding these funds. If any member of the public would like to chime in with some inputs and ideas based on what you've heard or things that we've missed, now would be a great time. I see a hand up, KG. Is that Karen?
Hi, this is Kim Goho.
Kim Goho.
I'd like for it to be considered to potentially have this applied towards the folks who were assessed an extra tap fee unethically during COVID. That would be something that I'd like to just be put on the table, since it did occur right when COVID hit.
Thank you,
and
Kim.
We haven't been reimbursed for that, and I don't foresee that being on the table at this point.
Thank you. Other members of the public? Not seeing any. We'll bring it back. Other comments or thoughts from the board? Jennifer, Jennifer, Miranda, do you think you have enough input sort of to move forward and bring this back at a future agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Great. I'll look forward to that then. That was our final item on the agenda this evening. Apart from if any members of the board have other business they would like to raise. Or anyone like to make a particular motion?
This is Julian. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
We have a second. We have a second. Miranda.
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Trustee Corcoran.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned at exactly 9 p.m.
All right, good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Good
That was
night,
a good
everyone.
meeting.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
You too.
Thank you.